Pacific and Long Beach. We have a very distinguished panel. They are in alphabetical order. When I give your name, maybe you could raise your hand. Andy Hall, VP and Chief Programs Officer, San Diego Workforce Partnership. Cheryl Hibbeln, Executive Director, Secondary Schools, San Diego Unified School District. Michael Lee, Director of Education and Policy, CSU Aquaculture Program. Sean Mahoney, Executive Director of 0800, and Cheryl Peach, the Director of the Scripps Educational Alliance. So we're going to conduct this as a panel. No presentations. I'm going to ask a series of questions, and I will invite people to respond. And then at about 2 o'clock or 5 after, we'll come to you for your questions. And then near the end, I will ask each of our panelists to make a 2-minute presentation, some 2-minute summary statement. So this is a panel. They've assured me they don't need any visual crutches like PowerPoints the way the rest of us did. They can make vivid word pictures that will make those things totally unnecessary, right? Absolutely. Right. All right, so let's get started. And I would encourage all of you to speak up since with no microphones, the voices attenuate as you get near the back of the room. I think our first challenge is to get young people interested in careers in marine science, marine technology, marine engineering, careers in the maritime sector, including and perhaps particularly in business opportunities, and then to deliver opportunities for them to pursue careers. I'd like thoughts of any of you on this idea of whether that's the first challenge that we have and how we might go about it. If you want to make a statement, just speak out.
I'll go for it.
All right, go for it.
Thanks for being here. One of the things that we talk about a lot, and I think is particularly true with the blue economy, is if you think about a skills gap, so the difference between the employees, the skills, the competencies that employers want, and the skills, competencies, and interests that students or job seekers have, the difference between those things is the skills gap. I think a big part of the skills gap, especially in sectors like the blue economy, is an awareness gap. So if a young person has never heard about a particular career, how can someone aspire to the career they don't know exists? And in particularly in some of our neighborhoods, which I'm just particularly passionate about, some of our low-income neighborhoods where a young person walking down the street, the careers they see might be the teacher, the liquor store, the policeman, and so on and so forth. They have no idea that all these jobs in the blue economy even exist in San Diego, and if they don't know that, there's no possible way that they can actually aspire to those jobs and fill those jobs that our employers need to continue to grow. So I would say first step is closing the awareness gap.
Very good. To get them interested, they have to be aware of the opportunities. So, Cheryl?
Yes, I just from an academic perspective, I think knowing about the ocean science, and then more broadly earth science, including climate science, is really important for these students. And we have an unprecedented opportunity for our K-12 students in the next generation science standards, which are currently in a rollout phase within San Diego County and the rest of the state of California. And so one of the things that I feel particularly passionate about is trying to find ways to take advantage of the fact that now ocean and earth sciences are much better represented in those standards, and that we also have a lot more emphasis on teaching students about science and engineering practices. That is what active scientists and engineers actually do in their professions. This could certainly extend into all sorts of many sectors within the economy. Within that context, my particular interest is in engaging teachers and finding ways to bring that to their students. And so at Scripps, we work very closely with teachers in a number of different capacities, including not only programs at the institution, but also teacher professional development. So I think one way to get students interested is to work through their teachers, to bring new ideas for how to incorporate all of the sciences into earth and ocean sciences as part of the curriculum. So I think that's really something that we could work on collaboratively, which I know is one of the things that you mentioned in your.
And we have a number of teachers here with us today. And it doesn't all have to be in careers in marine biology.
No.
Research. Somebody expand on it.
Well, San Diego is a coastal city, and everybody living here is in a coastal environment. But do kids in the schools really interact with the ocean? Are they inspired to want to think of it as a potential kind of career template for them? I mean, do they go to the beach? Do they surf? Do they scuba dive? Do they have something that kind of grabs their interest? And then when they are in high school, what makes them follow a particular career? I mean, there are two basic models for what you end up doing. One is it's by design, the other is by accident. Many people find these things out after the fact. Well, if it's going to be by design, then it needs to be introduced. There needs to be some kind of purposeful way that students, as you say, can know what careers are out there. So we've got to find ways to provide tastes of those careers during the academic pathway, either at high school or during their undergraduate. If they arrive as an undergraduate and they're going to college because they've been told they have to go to college to get ahead, then they're still going to have to figure out what is going to be their major and why is that going to be their major and how are they going to get into this. So bringing that into the classroom virtually, but also through field trips, through field experience, through shadowing of employees, for bringing workers to talk to the students in a kind of a real way, but also getting the teachers out there. So having academies for teachers in the summer where they can learn what are those jobs. Aquaculture, for example, at Moss Landing, what we want to do with our CSU Center is be able to get teachers to be able to come in for 2 weeks in the summer. They can get a stipend and they can learn about aquaculture and the various jobs in aquaculture, which they can pass on to their students, inspire them by saying, I've walked the walk, I understand what this involves, here's how you go about doing it, making it real.
And young people today will not only have more than one employer over their lifetimes, but they will, in all likelihood, have several careers, perhaps in quite different fields. So it becomes important for us to provide them with the core competencies that they will need. What are some of those core competencies? And are we doing a good job of training this potential workforce? Anybody?
Well, I mean, the core competence that everybody, wants is the ability to critically think, to be able to work out problems and problem solve them. That's not any one specific discipline. The ability to interact with others socially and in the workplace, through the teamwork, those abilities, the ability to write and communicate. I mean, these are all standard things we hear all the time from employers, and if you read articles about what people are looking for to be successful in aquaculture or in science, those things always show up, and those are discipline independent. So those core things we still need to keep working on. The question for some of these marine industries is, can you teach, the specifics of a particular job? Not necessarily. Those things can be bolted on at college or through on the place, in workplace training, but the ability to do the math, to do the critical thinking, to be able to communicate. But within a framework, within something tangible, something real.
And many of those specifics will change over the next 5 to 10 years. So I think being able to write clearly and express oneself clearly, and as you say, critical thinking. I would add to that, though, we do a better job on teaching critical thinking than we do on teaching creative thinking, and they're quite different.
I'd just like to add that when I was invited to come here last year, and I spent 18 years in the school district before the panel that Andy encouraged me to sit on last year, I had to Google what blue economy meant before I came here. I mean, I want to keep it that real. And so for district leaders in a school district to not know that language, and when I Googled it, I started to see things that I recognized in the system. I knew that we had some fish farming going on in our schools. I knew that we had some aspects of biotechnology going on, but I think in terms of this awareness, and you guys are describing soft skills, and unfortunately in our brick and mortar traditional classes in our school district, we're not spending a great deal of time on soft skills. Where you're seeing that is in our pathways. where kids have interdisciplinary curriculum, they're on some type of 3 or 4-year path towards something. And so one thing for me from the school district perspective is, if we don't start building something beyond a field trip in this sector, then we're not going to be producing kids who see themselves in, like Andy said, jobs that maybe they don't even know exist. So for me, I'm sitting here going, how do we take the blue economy, the maritime economy, and find a school that's already doing some of this and build some robust pathway where we can model how the sector and the soft skills and the interdisciplinariness of educators in business can find some momentum so that the school district knows what we're talking about when we say blue economy. The other piece here that I think would be huge for this sector is other businesses are partnering with the school district to create labs so that kids can tinker around certain sectors. So we have a lab at Qualcomm for engineering, one at Raytheon for underwater rover engineering, and we have one at SeaWorld for life science. Wouldn't it be amazing to have an incubator of some type around the blue economy and have a lab at some school that has a pathway, and we can funnel kids in from the school district K through 12 to have these experiences so they know what we're talking about and they're engaged in the sector.
I think that's an important point. So how can we enhance the connective tissue among elementary, secondary schools, colleges, universities, and maritime industries? You've given some examples of ways to do it. Are there other things that we can do or that are being done that make these linkages across these different systems?
Yeah, if I can just jump into that. I think one thing that we've worked on with UC San Diego and some of the community colleges and Biocom, which is the Maritime Alliance's equivalent in the life sciences field, is the Life Sciences Summer Institute. And so there's kind of a young person component to it where they do internships and that kind of thing. But one of the most impactful parts of it is every year we retrain about 60 teachers, high school biology teachers, and Scripps actually did a big part of that, so thanks for that. But the teachers who used to have different continuing education requirements, this would count for their continuing education requirement. In the summer, they would do a 2-week stipend, externship with a company in the life sciences field. It was accredited by Cal State San Marcos for a while, and then UC San Diego Extension for the continuing education piece. And then they would go back and take what they learned in industry on a project that they worked on and share that with the kids. And we impacted over 15,000 kids over the last since 2005. So that's one way to really impact a larger net of kids is through the teachers. And I see no reason why that can't be replicated in the blue economy. I think we have most of the right people in the room and at this conference to do that. So I think that would be a big win.
That would be a very important goal, I think. How do we think about the job prospects in the maritime economy, the blue economy, going forward? What forecast you have? Michael, you and I have talked about this, but...
Can I speak to the previous point?
Okay, go ahead, sure.
So, I can speak from the CSU, for example, here we'll be talking San Diego State University, right? So, across California, we have 440,000 students, right? The majority of them are going to come to the CSU through a transfer from a community college. So, we need to create that ladder from the CSU in particular, which are often place-based students. They're not destinations, they're commuter schools, they're in the community, they're from the community, they stay in the community. So the CSU works with the community colleges, works with the high schools to get that flow. So teachers and mentors, and they can be students from the university, go back into the high school and they mentor and they guide and they bring the students forth in these areas. But then when they get to college, they don't just lose them into the system. They then get mentoring, continues on through that process. So we have to have more overlaps between teachers and professors, between college students and high school students to create those linkages that bring them through. Because particularly in the engineering field and the STEM fields, often the programs when they get to college, we do them a disservice because then they hit with 1 year or 2 year of not hands-on creative classes that they've had in high school coming from these pathways. They've got to get through 4 levels of calculus. They've got to get through statics classes. They've got to do all of these things, many of which end up weeding them out because some of the students, particularly those that are first in their family, first generation, they haven't got those kind of soft skills that enable them to maybe fail a class or take the class twice or all these things, and they're not given help when they get there. So we've got to change that model too, so that we're not using STEM, which ultimately feed into a lot of this ocean stuff, as being a way of weeding out students that end up then going, oh yeah, I'll go do liberal arts or become a teacher or something. I mean, it doesn't work like that. No, but that's what happens to some of the science folks that wouldn't happen. I mean, I think we should be paying teachers $100,000 a year personally, and I'll gladly pay more taxes for it, because we need to value that information. But a lot of people end up going out of the fields that would lead them into the ocean because they're given an unrealistic expectations, and they're not given the help when they get to college.
Mentoring is a very important part
Very important.
for success. I want to come to job prospects. So in the maritime, the blue economy, do we think this is going to be mostly white collar, blue collar? Are we training for the opportunities that we see there? And I think we have to be careful. I can remember back probably 25 or 30 years, I was involved in creating a marine technology program in community colleges. And we were overly optimistic in terms of the jobs that would be available to those graduates. And eventually, most of the programs shut down. There are still a few. But do we run that risk in the blue economy, or is it going to be diverse enough that there are enormous job opportunities at different levels? Andy, you want to start?
I can take that one, yeah, just because the reason I'll take, because we just finished our blue economy occupational outlook report. We do different profiles of workforce partnership with different partners on different sectors, and we did one on the blue economy this year. We just finished it hot off the presses. I have one for everyone, hopefully, and there's more in the exhibit room. A couple things I wanted to highlight is actually a couple surprising findings. We surveyed, there's about 1,400 local blue economy companies, everything from our marine biologists and technology companies, everything to fisheries and that kind of thing. So a wide range of different types of jobs. About 1,400 in San Diego County. The majority, 95%, are small businesses, less than 100 people, and so connecting with them can be difficult because it's not just it's not just the NASCOs of the world, but it's very small employee companies. And some of the stuff I learned was actually very interesting. And I'm not the researcher on our team, but I'll give you a few of the snapshots. 82 of the 200 that we surveyed said that the number one issue that they face in growing and expanding is employee recruitment and retention. So that was interesting. But what was also interesting is that 21% expect to grow more full-time employees, while 30% of those respondents said they expect to grow in a lot of part-time employees. So that's interesting, and in the blue economy in particular, a lot of projects are project-based. If you think about NASCO is a great example. They get a big contract to build some ships, they hire people, but then it's cyclical. They lay off a lot of people too. So kind of finding a long-term career is you have to be able to plan for that kind of project-based mentality in many of these jobs, including fishing is another example of a seasonal occupation. So a lot of the growth is in part-time jobs. 36% actually said that they plan to have fewer employees in the next 2 years than they do now. So that was actually higher, full-time employees that is. So that's higher than those who said that there would be more full-time employees. So that was news to me. But we profiled 15 different occupations, and in our full report, which isn't with me but it's on our website, you can see those different profiles, and it gives the occupational outlook for the next 5 years, tells you the skills, abilities, and educational requirements that these employers are expecting, and everything from commercial divers, which is one of the fastest growing by percentage at least, to welders, soft solders, fishers, scientists, so all across the map. And that's just a plug for some of our research, and then hopefully it got to your question a little bit. So I have one for everyone.
It does, and I think in many respects, hiring part-time employees is an advantage to companies because it relieves them of some of the responsibilities for benefits. And yet that looms very large. I think it suggests to me also that when you have to be able to move among projects of different kinds, you have to be nimble, and that's where the core competencies come in. Being able to execute and all the things that we've talked about. Anybody else want to add to what Andy has said? Okay, then I want to turn, and Sean, you're the guy who should address this first at least. The San Diego, it's a big Navy town, and we have a lot of our servicemen that are transitioning out of the Navy and other services. And is this a significant potential source of employees for the blue economy? And if so, what are some of the important aspects of this?
Well, I think it is, and some of the statistics are that 20,000 service members leave the military in San Diego County every year, just in our county. Think about that, it's quite a few. And about a third of them stay here. So that's, about 6,000 or 7,000 people. 8% of the adults in our county are veterans. And where do the veterans work? I think a lot of us think maybe government or whatever, but 71% of them work in private industry. So a lot of them are looking for jobs in private industry, and many have the type of training and experience just being around the maritime environment, maritime operations. And I just brought a list of there are many, many different rates in the services, or specialties, I should say. But just a few to think of that are in the Navy and Coast Guard, for example, machinery technician, people who work on engines, operations specialists run operations, bosun mates, their experience driving boats, sonar technicians, and that experience, what that could bring to the maritime industry. They have ITs, electronics technicians, electricians mates, damage control men. I mean, some of this requires a little bit of translation. A damage control man repairs things. So in this building, if something besides electricity were being repaired, that would be a damage control man. And then officers and their maritime experience and their supervisory experience. So I think that there is a big untapped resource there, or partially tapped, but could be tapped more.
And do we do a good job of brokering the opportunities and making these veterans aware of them?
I think it's kind of a two-way street where we have to make the veterans aware. We have to approach them in some way through maybe a veteran nonprofit or through the Andy staff, showing them which jobs are available and getting the word out to veterans so that they're aware of what might be a good fit for them. And I know there's a lot of different organizations in San Diego that can help with that.
Yeah, would it be necessary to have like a content expert in both fields? So, for example, folks who know what the various jobs are that match up to these descriptors within the forces, so they can say, these skill sets are common to this classification here, and that helps also former service men and women to see themselves in those other fields. I know in the university we have an outreach to veterans within our career service and with our enrollment services that help do that translation, coming into college, higher education, what careers are you best suited to, what fields, based on what your life experience has been, if you want to leverage that. So that idea of what's the, who can translate, who has the language and the understanding of jobs in both fields, because clearly the Navy is the maritime industry, right? The Navy is BlueTech, right? Inherently, in many fields.
Yeah, I think there's no one answer to that. There are many different resources available to the veterans that they can take skills and interest in skills assessments that will list those types of jobs that they might be well suited for. And there are government organizations and also nonprofits that specifically work towards individually working with a veteran. Andy and I are working on a project like that right now together, working with that veteran and working with industry and finding out what the best fit is.
So that's at one end of the spectrum with adults. But let's come back to the K-12 for a few minutes, because I think the teachers that are here, you probably have more influence, maybe other than their kids' parents, but influence in terms of their interest in making them aware of the opportunities that are there. So this is a question for the teachers. Do you feel that you get the information you need to make the blue economy come alive in your classroom with the various opportunities? Anybody? Yes, go ahead.
So I believe that I do because I seek it. So I'm always looking for opportunities to be a part of events like this. So I'm seeking it. But as far as some of my colleagues should see more faces from even just like my school side should be here attending this. I don't think they were aware that this was happening, you know, and so I think that's lacking, I think.
Are there other, yes, go ahead.
I think I do because of my relationship with Cheryl. Peach, because we've been together for what, eight years now or something like that. As a high school teacher, I've been working with professors at Scripps for years, and we still do it today. I'm still engaged with some of the professors. In fact, we just got done doing a really neat project with some of the kids. And also seeking it out and knowing that there is going to be something in the future where these kids are going to have to know this stuff. And I mentioned to you earlier, Jerry, that we're raising, we've raised a lot of fish. And so they're getting hands-on experience as high school kids. And hopefully with the relationship we have with Hubs and Southwood Fisheries and Scripps, I don't know what else I can do, to be honest.
Well, it sounds to me like you two are doing a lot.
But it's only us two.
You have those credentials.
That's the problem. It's not enough of
I was
us.
just going to say, Cheryl, when you brought up if there's one school that we can go to and see what someone is doing to, create those career pathways, or at least knowledge of those career pathways, then I would say Mission Bay High School is probably a good place to start with Steve. And I think that it's really a testament to his passion for what he does, that he's really thinking about what sort of outcomes he can create for his kids. And then I just want to add that I think there's an element here that when I think about engaging K-12 students in ocean and ocean-related careers, I think we have an opportunity actually, as I think you were alluding to look at the total career pathway from K-12 to community college to college or university, and then I work a lot with graduate students, and I find that's a really rich resource for connecting back into K-12 because the graduate students are eager and enthusiastic and knowledgeable about ocean sciences, and then they can in turn bring that back into the classroom working with the teachers. And this is what I call the ultimate win-win, because those grad students bring a lot to the table with the teachers. They bring great enthusiasm. They look much more like the students in your classrooms than I do, or excuse me, anybody else at this table. And they really engage the students in learning about science and engineering. And then the flip side for me, who is a proponent and advocate for the graduate students at Scripps, is that they really need to learn about communicating their science more effectively. It's stunning how quickly they lose the ability to speak plain English once they enter Scripps in the graduate program. It vanishes, and so putting them back in that situation where they're having to communicate their science in a way that's accessible really provides them with a great professional learning opportunity as a young scientist. So I know that part of this is about trying to find those intersections and places where we can link between various business, industry, and higher ed, and this is one way that I think is particularly fruitful. Proven so with Steve and many other teachers that we've worked with, but there's certainly capacity there.
There is capacity, but it seems to me, though, that the one examples we've heard, that they need to be scaled up.
Yes.
And there isn't, as far as I can tell, any organized programs that would make it easy for teachers who are very busy people to put into their classroom some of these things about the blue economy. And the last thing in the world we need is another curriculum. But maybe a short curricular unit on the blue economy that would fit the various standards, that meets those, and whether it's in a couple of days, if that exists, I'm unaware.
I think just knowing the teachers in the room that I recognize, what you're seeing in the audience, these are your innovators, the ones that collaborate with other teachers, and they're from pathways. I mean, not Mission Bay, but you have a media teacher sitting with a marine biology teacher, and they're collaborating around a project. It's two teachers, so certain numbers of kids are benefiting from that experience. But we don't have a pathway per se that would expose students on a larger scale to this type of learning. Right now, it's if a teacher like Steve is really interested and motivated and is willing to partner with Hobbs, which We went out there after coming here last year to see how what they're doing at that institute by SeaWorld, but that's all driven by Steve, right? So one of the things that I said when I walked in the room here and saw who was here, I walked up to Tony and I said, well, what about a blue economy pathway at Mission Bay that expands Steve's program? But that has to be driven by the school and the teachers and the desire of the staff there to do that, or else it's an experience Steve offers. And what happens when Steve leaves Mission Bay?
They won't let you go.
They won't let you go. They won't let you go. But you know what I'm saying? That lives with Steve.
So how do you institutionalize that pathway? Go ahead.
Okay, there are two pieces that I hear, and not hear that are missing. One, you need to engage, directly to answer the question you just asked. You have to get the support of the principal of the school. Okay, because if the teacher leaves and the principal is engaged, there will be continuity. Secondly, the parents are very important. And the Parent-Teacher Association plays a role in this support. Some parents don't know any of this because the teachers do, but they're more concerned about the children getting something, getting involved in something where they can get a work experience or getting paid. So paid internship during the summer and or an apprenticeship program and internship throughout the year at different points in time, very, very important so that the students can interact in real life outside of the influence of the community which they live in, which they may not get access to these things, but to show to the parents that there are some tangible benefits, not just promises in the sky, because they have seen many people graduate from high school and not being able to do anything with their degree. So I'd like to hear more from you.
Okay, comment on that. I'll start with the principal. I think and the parents are key. We used to have a partnership with the school close to our aquarium in Long Beach, and there was a third grade teacher there that absolutely loved the ocean, and because of her, we developed a program, and the principal tolerated it. But she tolerated it, and we made all the teachers members of our aquarium, and the kids in that school, they were within walking distance, and the whole class could come as our guests, so they used to hold classes there. And then with their Parent-Teacher Association, very few parents showed up. Most of them, they were from families with two parents working, and so we offered to have the PTA meetings at our aquarium, and the whole family could come, and we would have programs to entertain and educate the kids, and the parents then, they got free food, and the attendance went way up. The third grade teacher retired, the principal lost her interest, and the program died. So that's my experience. You've got to have the key people. Yes, go ahead.
I think another key piece are the education centers that we have as well, like the Aquarium, Virgin, and Ocean Discovery Institute. The young lady sitting next to me, I don't think she realized that I know that she works there or anything before me, but a lot of times they're more the boots on the ground while the teachers and the parents are churning and working really hard to make achieving kids. That could be a pipeline, that could be, maybe they could dedicate an individual to interviewing. I assume your name is Steve? Like maybe that could be a pipeline, and it sounds like you have a template for it, and that was an amazing thing to hear. And it's disappointing to hear that it was allowed, but it just means that it could work. So that's awesome.
So informal science centers, I do have a role to play. You've got the aquarium, the Birch Aquarium, there's the Dana Ocean Science Center close by.
Yes.
Comments from any of you?
I think there's a central role for those, like you say, the science centers to play, and we have many wonderful science centers around the San Diego region, and representatives here from Ocean Discovery Institute and myself and Jerry. We've begun experimenting with new approaches to the conundrum of the field trip, which is what I agree with you. Just doing a field trip is insufficient to engage the students at the time, but it becomes a one-off experience that doesn't necessarily stick with the students. And so I think there's a general trend towards looking at more sort of protracted experiences for students. It's not quite up to the internship standard, but at least for elementary and middle school students, working towards longer and more frequent interactions for a single program. So for example, we're very fortunate to have funding from Price Philanthropies to do this, and we run a program called Beach Science, which involves actually 3 days of contact with students to teach them about specific aspects of ocean science research and engagement when they do come to the institution with collecting data, analyzing data, and then also part of the program is interacting with graduate students. We actually have graduate students participate in every program. So I think there's a trend in that direction. So definitely a role for informal science centers and promoting the blue economy. Of course, we come with the bias and see through the lens of ocean science and engineering, but nevertheless.
And then to your point on apprenticeships, totally agree. Who's in the room? Mostly teachers?
How many teachers?
And what are the other folks in the room?
Okay.
Some folks for industry. Okay. So apprenticeship programs, I think that's a huge opportunity in the blue economy. Where there's only one that I know of at the state division of apprenticeship standards, registered apprenticeship, and disabled advocacy is just big on a grant if they're a group that can fund apprenticeship programs. Our organization actually can fund either the classroom training or the wages of an apprentice up to about $10,000 a person, and we partner with employers who need to sponsor the apprenticeship program. It goes to the state, and it can take sometimes 3-4 months to get approved. But once the curriculum is approved with an employer sponsor, and you have a local education agency, whether it's a K-12 district or a community college, you get your local LEA to sponsor it. And then once that is an approved apprenticeship program that lines up to some of the occupations that are growing in the blue economy, that's institutionalized. It can be a single employer apprenticeship program or a multi-employer apprenticeship program. It doesn't have to be organized labor, but it can be related to organized labor. And we can fund it on an ongoing basis. The state has a lot of funds for apprenticeship programs. I think the challenge is again, just like everything we talked about here, is connecting the dots between the employer's particular needs, and those needs are always changing, and then education, keeping up with that's always an ongoing challenge. But you brought up a great point with the apprenticeship program that's completely untapped in my opinion, and I think is particularly relevant with the changing technology field of the blue economy.
So some of the things I've heard is that we need to create this interest in the blue economy early. We need to sustain it. And awareness is the first step in this, to make kids aware of the diversity of opportunities there are in this growing blue economy. And that means we also have to do a better job of letting all the teachers know what these opportunities are. We need to probably institutionalize some of these pathways that carry us through elementary school, secondary school, community colleges, and on up. And internships are a really good way to do that. They give kids something concrete. It helps them in their applications for jobs or for the next stage of their education. And in San Diego, it seems to me the Navy, as you pointed out, that is a very important potential source, not only of employment, but probably of mentorship for some of these young kids. Do we have any other questions or comments from the audience? Yes, go ahead.
I'm not a teacher. I work for the City of San Diego in Economic Development. How many of you are familiar with the Junior Achievement Program? Why not a partnership or something similar to Junior Achievement with this industry? Get students from the industry and companies from the industry to form a group that goes out to the schools and gets the kids interested at a younger age.
Anybody have, would there be any roadblocks to doing that? I don't know. Anybody?
What is that program? It's an entity that's been out there for years, but it actually targets only professionals to come out and talk to your kids about how to get into the, high-end blue-collar jobs. We talk about administrative police, we talk about going into accounting, we talk about going into some of the most common professions. No mention of blue economy.
No mention.
So maybe introducing blue economy through that program. Partnering, because they're big, they're strong, they're in most schools already. So why reinvent the wheel?
Well, the Maritime Alliance would be a good one for you to have a conversation with you about expanding that portfolio in the
Oh, it's
junior.
not my program. I know of it, but it's not my program.
I'll ask Linda. Linda, aren't we having on the 15th is another junior achievement event?
Yes.
And it's linked to BlueTech, so it's, basically this question.
It's the coordination. It's always the effort to coordinate. When you have some regional area science, STEM, district paid STEM advocates, I don't know what they actually call them in grade 12. But you know who I'm talking about. They would probably be the most likely, although their plates are also very full. So it's just the coordination factor that becomes the challenge. Teachers, my best friend is in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science teacher, and she spends till 11:30 every night, if not midnight, doing curriculum to update it to the new California state standards, because she wasn't given any curriculum when she got the classes. So there's no time in her week to do that as a science instructor. So, and the rest of you are going, that's right. Can I add one other element that I mentioned, but it wasn't really focused on? The paid internship is very important in summer jobs. During the summer, children from low-income families, especially 14 and upward, that's a prime age for them to get into trouble. And if they are in a summer paid internship, job, training partnership, some sort of economic development agency, I think to keep them out of trouble, get some money, do something worthwhile, safe, and hopefully educational, so when they go back to school, they continue the momentum, and they don't forget over the summer or get in trouble, someone drops out of school. That's another very important aspect of the money.
Yes, go ahead.
And the Maritime Alliance offers that opportunity for low income and also for those who are college bound in a low income situation first to out of the family to go to college. Those internships to the Debt Company Experience San Diego to have to sponsor that intern every summer.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Better, not just on the website.
Yes, the Maritime Alliance, so they apply with that too.
Okay, we're coming to about 15 minutes left. The name of this panel is Education and Workshop Development for the Blue Economy. I'm going to give each of our panelists a couple of minutes to make a closing statement. If you were the Ayatollah with total control of power, what would you do to make this opportunity more visible and to really help us shape and develop the workforce for the blue economy for the future? And we're going to start with you at the end, Michael, and we're going to work our way this way.
So, no one would have predicted that I'd end up here as a college professor. My parents had an 8th grade education. I have 23 first cousins back in England. I'm the only one who ever went to college. And I only went to college and thought of myself as being a blue-collar professional because of a teacher. Because the teachers in my school, my high school, inner city school in Birmingham, England, were college graduates, and they told me things my parents didn't tell me, my family weren't telling me, and so that power, getting that message and the capacity building amongst teachers to recognize those pathways into the blue economy, to understand what the blue economy is, to link it back to the kind of curriculum, but also the idea of trying to create as many opportunities for the students themselves, as well as the teachers, but to get that in the field experience. I mean, the statistics that show that the experiential learning, the work experience that students can get before they get to college are huge predictors of their success in college, because it gives them a set of resiliencies, a set of skills, a perspective, work experience, an understanding of work and obstacles and how to overcome them that is often very hard to get in other aspects of life. So those two things, paying attention to both of those, I think will be really important piece in the puzzle of how we move forward to get this ladder from the high school into the BlueTech.
Thank you, Sean.
Well, I guess I'm the veteran advocate on that, so I'll say I touched on some of the hard skills that are specific technical types of skills that veterans bring to the workplace, but and Michael mentioned some of the soft skills and the importance of those. And with veterans, they have those experience leading teams, supervising, developing subordinates from day one when they're there in the service, and planning and implementing projects and operations, working with technology, overcoming challenges every day. And they tend to have a very strong organizational commitment. So if I were the king for a day, I would say, for those of you who run a business in this sector, I would suggest to develop a business case for hiring veterans, and to echo some of the things that have been said before, but focus on apprenticeship programs, internships, and exposure and employment for those who are leaving the service here. I think internships are great because if you can find room in your budget, you can have 3 interns, and then you'll get a job opening, and you can hire the best one, which is happens all the time. So I'll close with that.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yes, you said Ayatollah, so I'm going to go for it. I think that a lot of the problems arise from students thinking early on that they're not good at science and math, and they develop that attitude, from what I understand from my teacher colleagues, pretty early in their career. And I think one way that we could possibly get around that, and again, the Next Gen Science Standards are a really good opportunity to look at that, is to think about how engaging the ocean and the earth are for teaching all of the sciences. And so it has great integrative capacity as a focus, because Earth is a set of systems that integrates, physics, chemistry, biology, quite beautifully. And I think it's something that's interesting. And I also feel like, one of the things that we could work toward is introducing, sort of sneaking in the quantitative skills while teaching something that the students, I think, would find inherently interesting, certainly more interesting than the sort of stovepipe instruction that we see commonly, particularly in high school. So if I had my way, I would say we live in San Diego, we live by the ocean, it's an incredibly important part of the culture around here, so why not develop the new curriculum for the next generation science standards with a focus on the oceans, and use that as the great integrator. It will work in an integrative model at middle school. I think it's unintimidating, or less intimidating, for elementary school teachers who may not have formal science training, and it's engaging, starting with live animals, like if you find at aquariums. And then at the high school level, I think that, again, there's an opportunity, as I think is being done, to really use the oceans as a thread that's pulled through all of the science disciplinary training. Yeah.
Thank you. The other Cheryl Hibbeln.
I think, we have 138,000 students, and I think if we're going to make an impact here, it's probably going to have to be done both through our CTE pathways. Our Director of College Career and Technical Education is here. I think we're going to have to look at the sectors that we've already aligned, healthcare, engineering, life science, and see how we can thread the marine science theme into that work. I also think that if there's a fearless school out there that wants to take a stab at being the maritime center, we could build some powerful partnerships with business in the school and incubate some understanding, maybe in a 6 through 12 situation, middle and high school. And then the other way is definitely through our NGSS. San Diego Unified has adopted a sequence, and not in any particular order, of biochem physics in grades 9 through 11. So however we thread the ocean, we could potentially do it through those 3 courses, so that they're prepared for the NGSS rollout.
Okay, you get the final word here.
All right, so we have 1,200 maritime businesses in San Diego County, about 40,000 employees, and the majority of them say that their #1 challenge to growing is finding talent, and that a lot of people don't have the essential skills of teamwork and experience and collaboration that you need. On the other hand, in the same token, in the same county, we have 53,000 disconnected youth or opportunity youth, that's 16 to 24-year-olds that are not in school and not employed. And the majority of those 53,000, a large majority are from non-white, low-income neighborhoods. So my vision, my belief would be that every single 16 to 24-year-old in San Diego County that wants a summer job and is willing to go to a 3-hour work readiness workshop to be prepared for it can get a paid summer job, because summer jobs are unfortunately becoming a privilege. poor kids are less likely to have summer jobs than rich kids. I think companies and whichever sectors step up and provide those jobs opportunities, I think are going to benefit in the long run.
And I would say that I think it's very clear that the ocean will play an increasingly larger role in our nation's future and California's future, and San Diego, all of you here, this is a good place to start. The ocean is a wonderful opportunity to integrate, to bring the different disciplines to converge, or what E.O. Wilson called consilience, the unity of all knowledge, and not just for people who want to have careers in marine science, but it's a great way to bring all of the disciplines together to inspire people to learn. You had your hand up, you can give us the benediction.
Well, I just had one question for Andrew, actually it's two. In the Blue Economy, the job outlook, in your research, which is the best, most improving sector, has the best, most employment, and which has the worst? And second of all, have you done a comparative analysis of that with other, like say, the biotech or some other sector to see which has more opportunity for growth, better income potential, things like that?
Yeah, short answer to both those, and we talk afterwards. So the second question first. Yeah, we did different timing. We didn't do a direct comparison, but in 2014 we did life sciences in your example. We did a few other sectors this year, so I don't have it off the top of my head which one's better or not, but we did do that, and I can point you to the research. And then within the blue economy, which occupations are growing faster, our full report has that. I don't have it in front of me, but our full report that I'll point you to has that information. Each occupation is profiled with their estimated growth. So don't have an answer off the top of my head. I'm not a researcher, but I can point you to it after this. Hopefully that's okay.
Okay, please join me.
Can I add one more comment? My former teacher's in here, and she just, when I looked over at her, I thought of something. I think you have to keep in mind when we're talking about urban neighborhoods in San Diego, what was shocking to me, I was a principal in Linda Vista for 10 years at Kearney High School, and Eileen or Tony might remember this, I can't remember who went on this field trip, but we got all excited about a partnership with Surfrider Foundation, and we bused the kids to the beach. And we were going to do beach cleanup and you know, all these great things. And what we didn't realize when we got to the beach was they'd never been there.
Yeah.
And they lived in Linda Vista their entire lives. And so the whole field trip became about something else. And it was absolutely mind-blowing to me that you could be a 15-year-old in Linda Vista,
right,
which is not that far from the beach, and never have been out of your community. So when we talk about like ocean awareness, can you imagine that's Linda Vista, right? Like if you start thinking about other communities in San Diego that these kids don't get out of the local area where there's the grocery store, like that's what we're dealing with in terms of exposure in the school district at a level that you kind of go, what?
And that is very typical. In Long Beach, we have found that there are tens of thousands of kids who have never been into the ocean, even though they live less than 2 miles away. So we have it's both an opportunity and a challenge. Please join me in thanking our panel.